a sound or you'll wake them in the deepest part of the ancient forest. The flickering candlelight illuminates the faded pages of a story. Hedgehog still sits and tells the stories that people dare not tell before.
The Spinner of Broken Things. Chapter 1. The Girl with Porcelain Hands. In the grim, granite-quarried town of Aethelburg, where the rain fell like nails and the sun was a forgotten currency, there lived a girl named Elara. She was the ward of the master tinker, a man named Grimbold whose heart was as cold and precise as the gears he fashioned. Elara was not his daughter by blood. She had been found, a shivering and inexplicable child, on the night the great clock tower at the town's heart had mysteriously stopped. Elara's existence was one of quiet servitude, but it was defined by a singular, miraculous affliction. She could not be broken. Not truly. When she was 7, she slipped on the wet cobblestones and shattered her arm like a piece of delicate glass. Grimbold, in a fit of rage and strange inspiration, had gathered the pieces, ground them to a fine, pearlescent dust, mixed it with egg white and rainwater, and slathered the paste onto the ruin of her limb. The next morning, her arm was whole again, but it was no longer flesh and bone. It was porcelain, smooth and cold, painted with the faint, hairline blue veins of the china it once was. This was the first mending. Over the years, other breaks followed. A dropped hammer shattered her foot. A slammed door crushed her fingers. Each time, Grimbold would perform his alchemy of repair. He grew adept, even artistic. Her right leg from the knee down was now a graceful, fluted column of off-white ceramic. Several of her fingers were slender, jointed porcelain, their tips forever cool to the touch. A crescent moon of her forehead, hidden by her hair, was a smooth, glazed patch where a falling gear had struck her. The townsfolk called her the Patchwork Girl, the Porcelain Doll. They crossed the street to avoid her shadow, whispering that she was a thing of ill omen, a creature born from the stopped clock's stolen time. The children, cruel in their honesty, would chant, "Tick-tock, break the clock, here comes the girl of rock and chalk." Elara's only solace was in the broken. While Grimbold tinkered with new, perfect things, Elara felt a profound kinship with the discarded. She would sneak into the town's vast, sprawling scrapyard, a canyon of rusted metal, shattered machinery, and forgotten lives. There, she would sit amongst the ruins, and she would listen. For Elara could hear the stories trapped inside broken things. A cracked teacup hummed with the memory of a final, bitter argument. A shattered loom whispered the song of a weaver's despair. A child-splintered rocking horse held the fading echo of a lost laughter. These silent, fractured objects sang to her a symphony of ruin, and in their songs, she found a melancholy sense of belonging. She was one of them. One evening, driven by a loneliness that ached deeper than any bone break, she picked up a music box, its casing smashed, its mechanism rusted silent. Cradling it in her porcelain hands, she poured her longing into it, a silent plea for a friend, for a voice to answer the chorus of broken stories. A single, warm tear, the first she had shed in years, escaped her eye and fell onto the rusted mainspring. There was a soft click. A tiny, misshapen gear turned. A single, discordant note plinked into the twilight. And from the shadows of the scrap heap, something stirred. Chapter 2. The Scrapsmith. It uncoiled itself from a skeleton of a broken carriage, a figure woven from detritus. Its body was a tapestry of rusted chain and bent nails, its limbs articulated with salvaged piston rods. One hand was a pair of needle-nose pliers, the other a heavy ball-peen hammer. Its head was the cracked face of a porcelain doll, one eye a gleaming brass button, the other a dark, empty socket. From within its chest came a sound like a bag of nails being gently shaken. It did not speak with a voice, but with a resonance that vibrated in Elara's porcelain parts, a language of clicks, whirs, and pressures in the air. You called, it resonated. The weeper, the mender child. Elara should have been terrified, but the creature felt familiar. It smelled of oil and old rain and the sad songs of the scrapyard. Who are you? She whispered. I am the one who listens, it whirred. I am the scrapsmith. You are full of cracks. I can see the light through you. It reached out its plier hand, not to grab, but to gently tap the porcelain crescent on her forehead. A clear, chime-like sound rang out. A fine repair, it resonated, a hint of professional appraisal in its tone. But clumsy. The binding is weak. He used fear, not understanding. He mends the vessel, but not the story within. Grimbold, the cold tinker, the scrapsmith confirmed. He knows the craft of stillness. I know the craft of motion. You are something else. You hear the songs, do you not? The stories in the silence. Elara nodded, mesmerized. Then I will teach you, the scrapsmith said, not to mend, but to remake. And so, Elara's secret education began. Night after night, she would steal away to the scrapyard. The scrapsmith taught her the true nature of broken things. It showed her that a break was not an end, but a change of state. A story interrupted, waiting for a new chapter. He taught her to feel for the memory tension in a fractured piece of metal, the grief grain in a splintered piece of wood. He showed her how to use not pastes and binders, but intention and empathy, to persuade the pieces to find a new whole. Her porcelain hands, she discovered, were not a curse, but perfect tools. They could sense the subtlest vibrations in a material, could feel the history etched into its surface. She started small. She took a music box with a broken mainspring and a cracked bell and remade it into a tiny, whirring beetle that clicked a cheerful rhythm as it scuttled over the scrap. She took a shattered mirror and a collection of lost keys and fashioned a wind chime that, when the breeze caught it, didn't tinkle, but whispered forgotten secrets. She was happy. For the first time, she had a purpose, a teacher, a friend. But the scrapsmith was always watching the town, its single brass eye fixed on the silent clock tower. The great heart is still, it would often resonate, a low, grinding worry in its voice. The town grows sicker with every silent day. The cold tinker fears the truth it holds. What truth? Elara would ask. The truth of you, was its only, cryptic reply. Chapter 3, The Clock Tower's Secret. Grimbold grew suspicious. His patchwork girl was changing. She was less clumsy, more thoughtful. Sometimes, he would catch her looking at her own porcelain hands not with shame, but with a strange, focused curiosity, and she no longer flinched when he reached for her. He had his own reasons for keeping Elara close, reasons buried deeper than the town's foundations. The night the clock stopped was the night his own wife, the true clock winder of Aethelburg, had vanished. He had found only Elara, a silent, unbreakable infant, lying at the base of the tower. In his grief and terror, he had taken her in, not out of kindness, but out of a desperate, superstitious hope that she was the key to restarting the clock, and perhaps, finding his wife. He believed the clock's mechanism was somehow tied to Elara's own unnatural nature. He had been trying, for years, to understand her composition, to replicate it, to build a new heart for the clock from her unbreakable essence. Her breaks were his experiments. Her pain was his research. Driven by a fresh, frantic desperation, he decided on the ultimate test. He needed to see the core of her, the source of her mending. He needed to break something vital. He cornered her in his workshop, his eyes wild. The arm, Elara, he said, hefting a heavy smithing hammer. We need to see. We need to understand the core. It will only hurt for a moment. Terrified, Elara backed away, her porcelain foot clacking on the stone floor. No, please, father. You are not my daughter. He roared. You are a thing I found. A key to a locked door. He swung the hammer. Elara raised her porcelain arm in a desperate block. The hammer connected with a sound that was not a shatter, but a deep, resonant gong. The force of the blow did not break her arm. Instead, a shockwave of pure, visible energy, a ripple of silver and blue, erupted from the point of impact. It shot through the workshop, shelves of tools and gears rattling. It passed through Grimbold, and he froze, his face a mask of stunned confusion, as if he had forgotten what he was doing. And in that moment of shared, resonant shock, Elara saw. She saw a memory that was not her own. She saw Grimbold, younger, terrified, standing at the base of the clock tower. She saw a woman with kind eyes and hands stained with clock oil, his wife, Lyra. She saw Lyra not vanishing, but merging with the great clock's central mechanism, her body dissolving into a swirl of golden light and intricate gears, a final, desperate act to prevent a catastrophic failure that would have unbound time itself. The clock hadn't stopped. It had been sealed. And Elara, she was the seal. A living, breathing, unbreakable seal, created from Lyra's last sacrifice and the concentrated time magic of the tower. She was not a key. She was a lock. The vision ended. Grimbold staggered back, clutching his head. What was that? Elara looked at him, her grey eyes filled with a terrible, newfound knowledge. You loved her, she whispered. And your grief made you blind. She didn't leave us. She saved us. And you've been trying to break her final wish for 17 years. She turned and ran, not to the scrapyard, but towards the heart of town, towards the silent clock tower. Chapter 4, The Heart of the Machine. The door to the clock tower had been sealed for decades, but it opened for Elara at her touch, the rusted locks crumbling to dust. Inside, it was not a place of cobwebs and decay, but a cathedral of frozen motion. Gears the size of wagon wheels hung suspended in mid-turn. Pendulums were caught in a perpetual fall. The air was thick and syrupy, humming with trapped potential. At the center of the mechanism was the heart, a complex, crystalline array of interlocking gears that glowed with a faint, imprisoned light. And woven through it all, like golden thread through a tapestry, was the fading essence of Lyra. Elara could hear her song, a slow, sad, and endless lullaby of stasis. The scrapsmith was already there, having flowed through the cracks in the stone. It stood before the heart, its body trembling with a profound yearning. "The weeper is here," it resonated, its voice full of a strange, metallic sorrow. "The lock has come to the key." "You knew," Elara said, her heart pounding. "You knew what I was all along. I knew you were her daughter. Not of his flesh, but of her final, greatest magic. A child of sacrificed time and a mother's love. You are the living memory of her act. The cold tinker tried to make you a thing of gears and paste, but you are a thing of story and song." It reached its plier hand towards the glowing heart. "I can free her. I can finish what the cold tinker started. With your power, we can restart the heart. We can have time flow again." Elara felt the pull of it. To have a mother. To be whole. To set time right. But as she looked at the scrapsmith, she saw the truth in its empty socket. It didn't want to fix time. It wanted to own it. It was a creature of chaos and reassembly, born from the town's collective forgetfulness and broken dreams. It saw the frozen heart not as a tragedy, but as the ultimate broken thing to be remade in its own image. "This isn't mending," Elara said, her voice steady. "This is stealing. You want to take her story and make it your own. All things are remade." The scrapsmith shrieked, its resonance becoming a painful screech. "Nothing is permanent. Not love, not memory, not time. Why should this be any different? Help me, or I will unmake you and use the pieces." It lunged at her, its hammer hand swinging. Elara raised her porcelain arms, not to fight, but to defend. The hammer blows rang against her, each impact sending shivers of resonant energy through the frozen chamber. Gears trembled. The lullaby of stasis wavered. She couldn't win a fight. The scrapsmith was a part of this place, fed on its brokenness. She was just a girl, a lock, a seal. But a lock could be opened. A story could be finished. She stopped defending. She turned her back on the scrapsmith and ran towards the glowing heart of the mechanism, towards the fading song of her mother. Chapter 5, The Unbreaking. The scrapsmith was upon her in an instant, its plier hand closing around her porcelain ankle, pulling her back. The force was immense. She felt a hairline crack, a spider web of pain, spread up her leg. "You are broken." It resonated triumphantly, "and all broken things are mine." "Yes," Elara whispered, a strange peace settling over her. "I am broken. We all are." She placed her hands, both the porcelain and the flesh, onto the crystalline heart. She didn't try to mend it. She didn't try to restart it. She did what the scrapsmith had taught her. She listened. She opened herself completely, and she let all the stories in. The song of her mother's sacrifice, the clanging grief of Grimbold's workshop, the whispered secrets of the scrapyard, the cruel chants of the children, the silent, ticking loneliness of her own heart. She gathered every broken story, every fractured memory, every ounce of pain and love and loss that defined Aethelburg. She felt the scrapsmith's grip tighten, trying to pull her into its chaos, to make her just another piece of its collection. But Elara was no longer just a lock, she was a crucible. She took all the broken stories and, with a final, monumental effort of will, she did not remake them. She accepted them. She allowed them to be, in their perfect, fractured wholeness. The break was part of the story. The crack was where the light got in. A sound began, not from the clock, but from Elara herself. It started as a hum, then grew into a chord of such profound and complex beauty that it seemed to contain every sound that had ever been. Every laugh, every cry, every whispered word, every turning gear. It was the sound of a story being told, honestly and completely. The light from the heart flared, not with a violent explosion, but with a warm, golden dawn. It washed over Elara, over the scrapsmith, over the entire tower. The scrapsmith screamed, a sound of rending metal. It was not being destroyed, but being understood. Its chaotic, reassembled form was being seen for what it was. A story of loneliness and a desire to fix a broken world. In the face of that total, unconditional acceptance, its rage had no meaning. Its form dissolved, not into scrap, but into a shower of luminous, silent tears that fell to the floor and vanished. The great gears of the clock tower began to turn. But they did not simply restart. They moved with a new, gentle rhythm, a slow, deliberate tick-tock that was not the march of relentless time, but the steady heartbeat of a community, of stories being lived.
and in the center of the heart, the golden essence of Lyra stirred. It didn't break free, but it coalesced, forming a faint, smiling image that looked at Elara with infinite love and pride. Then it settled back into the mechanism, not as a prisoner, but as its guardian spirit, its soul now one of quiet joy.
The lock had been opened, not by force, but by understanding. Epilogue, the Keeper of Stories. The rain in Aethelburg still fell, but it was a softer rain. The sun, while still shy, made more frequent appearances. The great clock tower ticked on, its new rhythm a comfort to all who heard it.
Grimbold, his mind cleared of its poisonous grief, could no longer bear the cold precision of his workshop. He became the tower's caretaker, tending to its new, living heart, finding a penance in its maintenance. He and Elara never spoke of what had happened, but a quiet, fragile peace settled between them. Elara did not return to his house. She took a small cottage at the edge of the scrapyard. The townsfolk no longer crossed the street to avoid her. They came to her door. They brought the broken things, a locket that wouldn't open, a chair with a wobbly leg, a toy that had lost its magic.
But they also brought their broken hearts, their shattered dreams, their silent shames. Elara would listen. She never offered easy mends. Sometimes, she would simply sit with them in their brokenness. Other times, she would take their fractured object and, with her cool porcelain hands, she would help it find a new shape, a new story. A cracked bowl became a planter for a resilient flower. A shattered sword was reforged into a strong, beautiful plowshare. She did not hide her porcelain parts anymore. They were not a mark of shame, but a testament. They were the map of her own breaks, the evidence of her survival. She was the spinner of broken things, the weaver of new tales from old threads, and in the quiet ticking of the great clock, she heard the steady, reassuring pulse of a world that was, finally, learning to heal.
If you feel a chill down your spine, don't worry. They're just standing behind you, listening with you. Thank you for daring to enter the world of fairy tales of Nim. We'll see you again next night, if you're still around.